All right, welcome. This is the first in a series of videos where I'm going to rebuild this enormous standing hi-fi speaker into a combo guitar amp. Yeah, so I got this on Craigslist for 150 bucks. It's a Knight, which some people know as Allied Radio. It used to make like hi-fi kits in the 1950s. I didn't know that they made speaker cabinets, so this was kind of a surprise to see. Yeah, it's kind of a strange find. Like I said, I got it for 150 bucks on Craigslist. It's in good condition. I mean, typical wear. You can kind of see this hardwood top. Looks like somebody stashed their beer on the top or something. But basically, it's in fairly good shape. It's got this is actually not completely solid. It's slats of oak that are glued together, and then like a 16-inch veneer cap on the top, meant to look like solid wood. Everything else is plywood construction. You can see it's got a really strange shape. It was meant to go in like the corner of a room, so it's got this kind of triangular back, and unfortunately the top angles and the bottom angles are cut a little bit differently, so that's going to make things a little bit challenging when I go to rebuild this cabinet. Yeah, you can see a lot of dead space back here, a lot of kind of just empty space on the sides, really unnecessary, make this thing kind of unwieldy. So the real reason I paid 150 bucks for this is right there. That's a JBL D130, an original 16 ohm. This was before the F variant, which was the Fender licensed version. So this speaker can only handle about 30 watts. Actually, it can only handle about 30 watts when it's new. So I wouldn't really want to pump more than, I don't know, maybe 15-20 watts for this thing. I'm going to rebuild, or I'm going to scratch build an amplifier, maybe a 10-watt amp in here, purpose made for this. So rebuild this entire cabinet using this speaker and as much of the original parts as possible into like a combo amp. Alright, so here is the donor amp that I'm going to be using for this build. This is a Leslie 101 power amplifier that I got, obviously used. This is from the 1950s, so I got this for 20 bucks on Craigslist a long time ago. And it's obviously not in original condition. I mean, it's only got one of the output transformers. Somebody ripped out the boards here, maybe for repair or something. But really, I don't need much of the original hardware as long as I have one of the output transformers and the power transformer and the chassis. That's really all I'm going to be reusing. So this was a 4-channel amp originally. Used 7189, so like 6 BQ5 type tubes. In this case, the plate impedance that gets reflected by this transformer should be perfect for the tubes I'm going to use. So very similar to like a 6 BQ5 or like a 6V6 or something. Should be like in the 8K range, 8K ohm range, and to a 616 ohm load, which is what this wants to see. Power transformer, obviously, I mean, this is going to deliver more than enough power for what I'm going to use it for. Right, originally it drove 4 of these stages, and now it's only going to drive 1. So current requirements, I'm not worried about. 6.3 volt filament. High tap winding is a little weird. Originally it had a floating winding, or a winding that was elevated basically by a DC power supply. I'm not going to end up using that same scheme. I don't need the extra voltage, so this should rectify out to like 315 volts, which is perfect for what I want. These holes will all have to be kind of changed depending on where the tubes are going to go. And I'm using a lot of octal tubes, and then I have to punch out some holes maybe for some 9-pin miniature bases for the power tubes. So some fab that has to be done here, not too much. Mostly on this side, so this is going to be the control panel side. I'll strip this schematic off. Basically this is like an unadulterated, there's no punches in this surface. I'll sand this and then maybe use some appliance paint and make this the front control panel. Alright, so the amp we're going to start from, the basic design that we're going to use, is this 6G3. This is the Fender, the brown face Fender Deluxe. This is one of the only amps, really popular Fender amps that I haven't built in one way or another. So I'm excited to hear this one in action. I hear it sounds amazing. So Billy Gibbons, the guitar player for ZZ Top, is famously used one of these. Starting at the beginning. So we don't need this extra triode stage, right? We don't need a normal input. Most people use the bright input anyway. This is not going to be a 12AX7 or 7025 triode stage. It's actually going to be a single small signal pentode. So this is a 6SJ7. I've used this and it sounds great in Tweed amps. So I don't see why it wouldn't work real well here. Okay, so from there we go through this voltage divider, which is our gain control, through another fixed voltage divider, so it divides the signal in half. It goes into this 12AX7. So I'm not going to be using 12AX7s. All the triodes in this amp are going to be replaced by 6 SL7s, so 8-pin bass, similar to 12AX7, a little bit lower gain. This tube and then the phase inverter tubes or the phase inverter stage will be 6SL7. It goes through this fixed voltage divider. May play with some of these values just if I want more overdrive out of the amp, we'll see. Long tail phase inverter with global feedback. I'm going to put in a post phase inverter master volume in this amp, just so I can get some overdrive at lower volumes. Then we go into a fixed bias 6v6 GT stage. In this case, we're going to be using this tube. So this is called a 6P 1P. It's a Russian pentode, 9-pin pentode. I got these for real cheap from Russia, and you can still find them for really cheap. I think they were like $4 a piece, $4 or $5 a piece, or something like that. And they're supposed to be similar to the 6AQ5, which I use quite a bit because those are also very inexpensive. Basically like a 300 volt tube, 12 watt max dissipation. And I haven't heard one in a guitar amplifier yet, so that'll be interesting. I think they'll work well here, and it fits well with all of the other parts and the parts that I have and the parts that I've chosen. So we'll see. I've got a ton of those, so if I blow some up, I should be able to replace them pretty easily. We're going to make this the fixed bias voltage adjustable, so we'll have to have like a cathode, like a current sensing resistor here. And then I'll probably also add grid stoppers, just kind of a normal practice, and maybe also some screen resistors. So the last stage is the tremolo LFO, which is this like phase shift LFO that wiggles the fixed bias voltage on the grid of the power tubes, which is provided by this half-wave rectifier here. So most of this will be the same, with the exception that this will be replaced with the 6SL7. In this case, the power supply is not going to be tube rectified, so I'm not going to use a G234 or any tube rectifier. So this is just going to be a full wave, a bridge rectifier using silicon diodes. And the reason being is that the voltage is already it's already low coming from this power transformer that I'm going to be using. So I don't want to lose any more to forward voltage drop of rectifier. So the silicon diodes will do that for me. I'll get 300 volts on the plates, no problem. Yeah, so this is where we'll start. You know, I always end up building things like this and then tweaking them later. Sometimes it'll sound too dark, or I don't have enough control over certain frequencies, so things always end up changing. But this is a good starting point. Yeah, so the next thing, is going to be gutting the chassis, and then from there kind of figuring out where everything goes. So maybe doing a layout on turret board. I think I've got some extra turret board lying around, so maybe we'll walk through how to do the layout for a custom amp like this, and then also gutting this amp, just in general kind of cleaning it up and preparing it for scratch build. And then obviously I'll have to keep track of how everything fits together with the cabinet as I'm building it. Right, the chassis has to mount somewhere. I have no idea where at this point. But once I start building this cab, I should have a better idea of where everything's going to finally sit. So yeah, so on to cabinet deconstruction and then gutting and cleaning this amp.